Hello and welcome to today's Value Project podcast. I'm Becky.
I'm Mary, and today we are carrying on with our series called God Can't Use Me. And today we're going to be looking at God Can't Use Me, I'm Not Qualified. So we're going to be looking a little bit at the story of Moses, who he was in the book of Exodus, and how he fits into this topic. So to kick us off, Beck, can you give us a 30-second recap of who Moses is, what happens in the book of Exodus, and the whole story?
The whole book of Exodus in 30 seconds.
Exactly that. You're a youth worker, you're made for this moment.
Yeah, but I also like talking.
That's also true. That's why it's 30 seconds. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so we meet Moses in the book of Exodus, and he is an Israelite. And the Israelites are living in Egypt at the start of Exodus. And the Egyptians have become quite fearful of them because they've become a great big nation. So their response to this is to make them all their slaves, and also that they're going to go and kill all their newborn babies. And so Moses' mum decides to put Moses in a little basket and place him on the river to try and basically hide him and from the Egyptians. And Pharaoh's daughter comes across this baby in a basket and knows that this is an Israelite, but decides that they're going to bring it up and look after this baby. So effectively, although Moses is an Israelite, he's brought up almost like an Egyptian. So he has this Egyptian upbringing, and then he later on basically he goes on and kills an Egyptian who he sees mistreating another Israelite, and then he runs away from that situation. And then God meets with him in this incredible way and then sends him back so that he can help bring his people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. And then the rest of Exodus is them wandering around the desert, getting lost. The whole book of Exodus is about the Israelites leaving Egypt and Moses being the person that God sends to bring them out.
I think that was slightly over 30 seconds, but I'll give you that because that was quite a good. That was a good recap.
Thank you.
That's basically the kind of summary of Exodus and Moses. We're going to be looking specifically at kind of the moment where God called Moses and what Moses' reaction to that was. So let's read the Bible. Do you want to read this?
Yeah.
Do you want me to read it?
I can read it.
Exodus, we're going to read Exodus chapter 3, verse 10 to 12.
So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you. And this will be a sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain.
Yes, so like here is God. They've had a bit of a chat beforehand, which is great, and you should totally read that. But this is God saying, Moses, this is your job. Go out and do it. And I always like to think, if I was having like a sit down chat with God and he said, Mary, I want you to go and do this. Like I'd like to think like I'd jump at the chance. But I think actually I'd probably have quite a similar reaction to Moses.
I 100% would be like Moses in this.
Yeah.
Like the amount of times and you get that feeling like, oh God, really wants me to have that conversation with someone, and I'm like, no, it's still in my head. No, I can't possibly do it. I'm 100% with Moses. Like I think I'd react like this.
Yeah, like Moses is literally just like, he doesn't jump at the chance. He's like, God, like, why the heck would I do that? Like, who am I to do that?
And really remember who he is. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not that long before this point killed somebody. He's been brought up as an Egyptian, so actually, he could be like, well, anyone else is better. Anyone else is better than me.
Yeah, but like, what I love is God is really simply like, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't actually matter who you are, because what matters is who I am, and I am the God of creation, and I'm on your side here, Moses. So, which you would think is a good enough answer, but what I love about Moses is he really owns his humanness, and like that is just totally not enough for him. Like having the God of creation on my side, that doesn't cut it.
I'm not sure what else he's looking for. Like God's like, I've got this with you.
Right, exactly.
That's not quite enough, God.
Let's pick up from Exodus chapter 4, verses 1 to 5.
Moses answered, what if they do not believe me or listen to me, and they say the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? A staff, he replied. The Lord said, throw it on the ground. Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." So Moses reached out and took hold of the snake and turned it back into a staff in his hand. "This," said the Lord, "is so that they will believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has appeared to you."
So here we've basically got Moses continuing to have a bit of a confidence and identity crisis. Like he's like, okay, fine, you're there, but actually no one's going to believe me. So they're not going to listen to me, God. So I'm not your guy. And like what I really love here is like a staff. Like although not many of us normally walk around with staffs nowadays. I mean, arguably I walk around with crutches, so it's basically a staff. I'm pretty close to Moses, but not quite. That was a very, very everyday object for Moses. Like that's something
he was a shepherd, was being a shepherd at that point as well, wasn't he? He was looking after sheep.
So that is something he would have used every day. It was a really everyday thing for him. And what I love is like God takes this really everyday thing and he turns it into a snake, and it's just like that reminder, I think, that like God is like, I can take the mundane, the everyday, the boring, whatever it may be, and I can make it extraordinary. And like as awesome as that story sounds, like I also think it's terrifying. Like imagine if you were like stood with your phone and then God's like throw it on the floor, you throw it on the floor, it turns into a lizard. I would A, be like, I hope that's covered on insurance, and B, be like, that's crazy.
I drop my phone a lot, so I have a lot of lizards.
You have lizards everywhere. Thankfully that doesn't happen too often now. But I love that God uses this staff and just shows that Moses, I can do extraordinary things with ordinary things.
And also I think the significance about the snake is that at that time, a lot of the pharaohs and people ruling Egypt, they would have worn like snake cobra things on their headdresses and stuff as a sign of like their sovereignty. So actually, what we see as well is that God's saying, show them this, the snake, and we do see that one of the first miracles happens when he goes back to Egypt. It's the snake coming out. He's started becoming a snake, and so actually, that's showing God's sovereignty. It's not just a snake, but actually that symbol in Egypt was of its sovereignty. So God is showing his sovereignty through that snake kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's more than just like, oh, it's a snake. There was kind of meaning behind that.
Yeah, and like I think like as you mentioned, like as you carry on reading through Exodus, like the staff is used a lot as to perform different miracles and things, and like I find that really powerful because like it's God being like, God used what Moses already had.
Yeah.
So like yes, God equips Moses in different ways, but actually but from the perspective of feeling like I'm not qualified, that God takes what Moses has. He takes what we've got, and even if what you've got you think is irrelevant, like I'm sure when Moses was tasked with getting the Israelites free, he didn't think, well, it's a good thing I've got this staff then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like he wouldn't have thought that, but actually, even if he thinks it's irrelevant, like God can still use it.
Yeah, I think as well, it's really easy to not appreciate some of the stuff we do have, or the gifts we have, or the abilities that we have, or actual things we have, because it's like, oh, that's that every day, and we're looking for this supernatural event to occur for God to do something. Us to be like, but actually you're completely right that God uses that every day. The things we've got now, the things that are in our everyday lives, and so actually, sometimes it's just like you've got the equipment, we've got it. God just he's going to use it, and have that confidence in that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Right, let's carry on going through Exodus. So. Exodus chapter 4 verses 10 to 11.
Moses said to the Lord, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." The Lord said to him, "Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say."
So this is one of my favourite Moses-isms, because we've had him say, God, who am I to do this? And God says, I'm with you. And then he says, but God, I can't do this. He says, well, got this staff, I'll turn it into a snake, show my sovereignty. And then Moses goes, but what you haven't thought of, God, is I'm bad at public speaking. Like, you haven't considered that one. And like, God's response is like, Moses, I made you. Like, I know what I'm dealing with here. Like, I know your skills and I know what you struggle with. Like, this doesn't come as a surprise to me. And like, I think that's so true when it comes to feeling like we're not qualified to do what God wants us to do. It's to remember that, God doesn't come up with these big plans and dreams and then look at us and be like, well, you don't quite fit the bill. Yeah, you've bitten off a bit more than you can chew here. Like, God knows what he's dealing with. He takes us and he creates these plans and dreams for us. Like, they are tailor-made to us. Like, he uses what we have got, even if we don't think we've got something inside us. Like, he knows if we do. I just totally love that.
I think as well, though, like, sometimes it might be like we don't have some, like, maybe there is some things we're not great at, but God provides us with people that are. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit in a second, but like, sometimes it is a case of like, God's like, you don't need other people, I'm going to give you that skills. But for me, I know when I started doing youth work, my biggest reluctance of working for a church was like, I'm really bad at being able to like quote Bible at you. Like, I love looking at the big picture of it. Like, I like being able to like explore and dig deep. But I am like, if someone says, "Oh, Beck, give me a Bible verse," I'd be like,
in the beginning,
Jesus wept. That's a short Bible verse. But I couldn't tell you where it is. But there you go. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm really bad at that. I was really self-conscious about that. And I'd be like, well, what if I'm like in a talk and need to do that kind of stuff? But actually, God's 100% provided me people around me who are great at that. I frequently do talks and people tell me what Bible verse I'm referring to because I've forgotten. Or I'm like, somewhere in the Bible it says this. And so actually I think, if God says this is what you're made for, this is what you should be doing, that the bits we're bad at, God's going to be like, he's either going to give us the skills to do it or he's going to provide some other means for it to happen.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily see that till you get to that point. You've got to kind of take that first step and say, trust you, God, I'm going to go for it.
Definitely. Let's carry on with what you're saying about God kind of can provide people around us. And do you want to just read Exodus chapter 4, verse 13 to 17?
Mm-hmm. But Moses said, "Pardon your servant, Lord, please send someone else." Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, "What about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and he will be glad to see you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were in your mouth, as if you were God to him. And take this staff in your hand, so that you can perform these signs with it."
So, like, even though God has said, I'm with you, I've shown you my sovereignty, you have this staff, I've created you, I know what you're capable of, Moses still says,
I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm not your guy. I'm not qualified for
Send
this.
someone else.
Yeah. And what I think is, like, we should really, like, note here as well and not ignore is, like, it says then the Lord's anger burned against him. Like, God gets angry, but actually doesn't throw in the towel. Like, God doesn't go, forget it, I'll go find you.
He's had, before this point, 5 times Moses goes, like, he gives them an excuse, and 5 times at this point, God's given Moses the reason why he can do it. And so it's like, God might have anger, but he's slow to anger. The bit I noticed, though, is where it says about, it says something about your brother is already on his way, wherever it is. He's already on the way. So God's given Moses 100 million chances here. But he always knew what Moses was going to do. Like, he's already sent his brother on his way. It's not like at this point going, fine, give in, I'll get your brother with you. But although God knew that's what Moses would do, he's still given Moses that chance to say, okay, yeah, I can do this with you, God.
Yeah. And, actually, say, even though his brother Aaron gets involved, Moses is still very much, part of this plan. He is very much, this is the one that God has called to do this kind of thing. He's very much part of it, even though he doesn't think he can, he's not qualified to. God still, keeps him involved, which I think is, such an encouragement for us as well. Yeah. So that's kind of the book of Exodus, but like we wanted to talk a little bit about a few other things about kind of reasons why we might not feel qualified.
One of the things I always think is I'm very good at being like, oh, I'll do that when I've got like when I'm ready or when I've got the skills. Like God, I'll do that talk when I know this information, or I'll pray for that person when I feel like I'm being super holy and you're answering all my prayers, and then I'll be courageous and pray for people I don't know. I'll pray for that healing when you've answered other prayers. Do you know what I mean? Like I do that, or I think, right, I'm gonna wait till I've got a good routine in my Bible and praying before I decide that I'm gonna do this and that. I've always done that, but actually, like, God doesn't need us to be feeling ready to be there. Like, God doesn't need us to have that skill set completely sorted and polished for us to start using what we already have. Like, if you're a musician, God doesn't need you to be like, I don't know what levels they get up to. Is it like grade 9 or something? I don't know. God doesn't need you to be professional before you can start singing to him and worshipping him. God doesn't need that. God can use what you have to use that. And so I think it's dangerous if we sit back and say, when I got to this point, because we'll never get to that point. There'll always be something we can do better. There'll always be something we can understand. We'll never understand God fully. We'll never have be the perfect Christian. Not that it exists. We're always going to have to be looking to be. We're always going to could do better, and therefore we can't wait until we are better, because we're never going to be good enough in that sense. But we're in the sense of that when we trust in God, he fulfills that what we're good enough. Saying that, it doesn't mean that we can be like, let's say you feel like God's saying you should be leading worship in church, and I'm never going to pick up, like, okay, if I said to you, Mary, God's told me I should be leading worship in church. Now, if anyone knows me, I have zero musical skill. If it's possible, I have minus musical skills. Wouldn't you agree, Mary? Yes. So God could perform a miracle and be like, yeah, like, get up on that stage, play a guitar. And do you know what? I pray that if ever God says to me that that's what I should do, I'll do it, although I'm very sure I'll do it. Moses will be like, no. But actually, if that's what I feel, that doesn't mean I shouldn't be practicing. Like, if I really felt that God was saying, like, get up on that, you need to be doing worship, doesn't mean I shouldn't learn to actually read music or learn how to sing. Like, it doesn't mean that we don't try, but it does mean that actually we don't have to wait till we're perfect at these things. Like, there's a time sometimes where maybe it's the time to prepare ourselves, and in that time of preparation we shouldn't just sit back and be like, God's going to provide it all. He will provide it, but you've also got to be partnering with him in it. So just being like, yes, or like, I'm going to do a talk about Moses, but I've never read it. Well, okay, but God's given you the ability to get to that point, to start reading it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean about, like, say, like, sitting back or, like, being lazy. It's, like, actively, you've got to be doing things. And, like, Jesus is a really great example of that, in that, he learned the scriptures, and he would be, quoting the scriptures when he preached. And he knew that he had this incredible knowledge. And that isn't necessarily, like, something, like, say, that we can just be like, God, download the Bible into my brain. Like, that would be great if that could happen, but actually, like, we've got to put work into it.
But then there's other times that you think of, the very first sermon ever given in, like, a church service on Pentecost. They stood up and started speaking. These people, they had not been like these big public speakers. That had been Jesus' job. They'd hung around with him. And so Peter stands up and he starts talking, and half the people in that listening to him are like not even of the same speak the same language as him. But because he had that willingness to stand up and talk, God uses him, and what comes out of his mouth, everyone understands. And that wasn't his skill. He didn't suddenly learn all these different languages for the people around. He started speaking and God translated it for everybody. But he had to have that willingness to stand up and talk. But he also had to have that willingness before that point to follow Jesus, because he wouldn't have got to that point without that. So God 100% uses people, and we don't have to be qualified in it. We don't have to feel like we're good enough, but we just have to have faith in God and follow him obediently without being lazy, saying God will sort it all, because he will sort it all, but we have to be there with him in that. Saying from the start line, oh, I'll get to the finish line if I just sit here. God's just, no, God, you've got to run it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we're gonna kind of draw this podcast to a close, but like I just like we really pray like that over you guys. Like if there's something that is going on in life and you're like, but I'm just not qualified for that, I don't have that in me. But you know, put that faith in God, and take that step. And I think, you know, the one thing to take away is like Moses wasn't the model guy. Like he said he killed someone, but actually like it is through his Moses' weaknesses that like God shines through.
100%.
Like where we don't like cut the mark, like that's where God fills. And actually doing things with God filling you is like incredible and so much more amazing than trying to do it in your own strength. So you know, if you don't feel qualified, do you know what? That's okay, because I promise you nobody does.
No.
Like even the people that you'll watch that are like leading worship in like huge churches or preaching to like thousands and thousands of people, like I'm pretty sure not even they feel qualified.
Or even just the, you know, we always go big scale, but small scale. You maybe got a friend who's really great at telling people about Jesus. Like, I bet you there's times that they are like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do here, you know. But like you said, it's in our weaknesses and in our bits that we're rubbish at that God shines through. That's where people notice God. It's where someone stands up and says, this is what I believe, or when they do something and people are like, that surprised me a bit. That's where these people see God.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish with a prayer. Beck, do you want to pray?
Yeah. Lord Jesus, we thank you for who you are. Lord, we thank you that in everything you are with us, and in everything you call us to, Lord, that you will never let us down. Lord, we thank you that you have given each one of us individual gifts and skills and abilities, Lord. And Lord, I pray that you will show us how you want us to use that, how you want us to be glorifying you and building your church, Lord. And Lord, I pray for a confidence from you in our faith and in stepping out. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Valley Project. We hope you just have the most beautiful day.